Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Miller. I'm the Associate Director for the National Consortium for Data Science, and I am delighted that you have chosen to log into this career panel this evening. Over 400 people from across the country registered to join us this evening. And I love hosting this event online because it means that a wide swath of folks are able to attend. You're coming from two-year institutions in rural Texas, from four-year colleges and universities on the East Coast, from Michigan to Alabama and Massachusetts and beyond. And that just never gets old for me. So thank you so much for being here. Welcome to all of you. Grab your water and get ready to take some notes. We are honored to have a distinguished group of individuals here tonight to share a bit about their career journey, including their highs and their lows. Before we get started, I just want to share a quick housekeeping tip. We will be providing a space for Q&A for our audience via a platform called Easy Retro Board. And we'll be dropping a link to that board in the chat with all of you shortly. We'll provide detailed instructions on how to use that, how to add your own questions in about 30 minutes. But if you are able to figure that out on your own, we invite you to add questions for individual panelists. But we will return to that in about 30 minutes. So without any further delay, I want to go ahead and get started. Thanks so much for being here once again. And Wayne, I'm going to pass the mic to you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today with you. My name is Wing Chan, and I am a Sampling and Test Development Manager at Bank of America's Global Risk Organization. My team develops independent testing, specifically in support of our consumer line of business, to help our business units manage risk, assess process and control effectiveness, and ensure policy adherence. I've lived in Charlotte for 10 years, and before joining Bank of America, I received my MBA from the University of Florida. I'm an undergrad in marketing from Florida State University. I want to thank the incredible leaders who are here with me as well. And so before we jump in, let's have our panelists say a few words. We'll start with Paige. Please share your name, title, where you work, and a little icebreaker. When you were 10, what did you want to do for a living? And what do you do for a living now?
Thanks, Wing. Hi, everyone. My name is Paige Spell. I work for Elder Research as a data scientist. Elder Research is a small analytics consulting firm that helps organizations understand, use, and apply advanced analytics to specific use cases. We are primarily made up of data scientists and data engineers, and we have experience in a multitude of industries, including government, healthcare, hospitality, and consumer packaged goods, only to name a few. But when I was younger, I didn't really know data science was a thing. I don't think it was when I was 10 years old. And so I thought I was going to be an anesthesiologist. I was like, that is cool. And I wanted to be able to help people, right? Like, we all live in this world together and we want to help one another. And I was like, I knew you had to be good at math. Those were like the two things. I was like, I want to help someone and I want to be good at math. So only one thing has changed since then. I am not an anesthesiologist, but I do still want to help people, and I like to think I'm good at math. So now I work as a data scientist at Elder Research, and I'm able to help clients extract meaningful insights from their data and solve their unique business problems.
Fantastic. I'm sure you're good at math. Thank you. Let's go to Melinda.
My name is Melinda Thielbar. I work at EY, which is, you might also know as Ernst & Young. We are also a consulting firm, and I work in the corporate tax practice. So if you've ever done your own taxes, and you know how complex that feels, think about an organization that's a corporation with offices all over the world. And those are the sorts of businesses that we help in my group. So when I was 10, I grew up on a farm. And so the coolest job I could think of was veterinarian. I was going to be a vet. I still love animals. Unfortunately, I'm also allergic to all of them. So I am very lucky that I did not go into that field. And what I do now is I work with development teams. So like we have a lot of people who are programmers. I'm a data scientist and an artificial intelligence specialist. But we're deploying big models at scale that make decisions automatically. And so I do a lot of collaborating with computer scientists on fitting data science models into these larger systems.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Rachini, how about you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. Rachini Musavi. I am with UNC Health as their Chief Analytics Officer. We do everything on my team from data acquisition and interoperability all the way through to how you might use self-service to analyze it, do more of the visualization around that data to really draw some insights, as well as the data science. So my team at UNC Health serves an entire health system, and we sort of run like a little mini city. We've basically got jobs for every aspect of what you would think a little city has. And so when you think about the data science work that we do, it can span any and all of that. We not only do the clinical benefit work, but we also do the operational needs work to really improve the capabilities that our organization can bring to the health and well-being of all North Carolinians and all the people that we serve. So when I was 10, I thought I was going to be a teacher, just because, kind of like Paige said, you have this orientation of wanting to help and wanting to do something that serves others. So I wanted to be a teacher. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd go into analytics. I would even go as far as to say that, unlike Paige, I was mediocre at math, terrible at mental math. And really was worried about anything to do with numbers. So, here we are, and things happen. But I feel like today I'm in the best job possible, being pretty much the data and analytics officer for the health system.
We will be definitely talking about pivots soon in this conversation. Last but certainly not least, Adam.
Yep. Hey, everybody. My name is Adam Cottrell. I'm an analytical consultant at SAS Institute in Cary. We're a moderately large company that makes its own sort of proprietary programming language, but I'm on the consulting side of the house, the professional services side, and we do anything and everything for clients between like very small, rapid analytic proofs to sort of large multi-year contracts, implementing all sorts of analytic systems for different customers. Yeah, my background is in, I have a couple of master's degrees, one in analytics, one in teaching, and my undergrad is in physics. When I was 10 years old, I was going to be a stand-up comedian. That was the career trajectory. But jokes on me. Now I mainly work with program integrity for large Medicaid systems, which sounds about like the most boring thing that you could probably ever do with your life. But there's lots of ways that it gets really interesting when you get into the nitty-gritty of it. So glad to be here.
Love that. I'm expecting a few nuggets from you, Adam, that will give us a chuckle during the conversation. Thank you for entertaining that little icebreaker. So let's transition into our first question for the entire panel. Heard a little bit about your academic journey, right? Seems like there's many variety of degrees that you all have accumulated throughout the years. So tell us about what you studied in your undergraduate or your graduate degrees, and what made you have that decision to pursue those degrees. Let's start with Paige.
Great question. Well, I had to start somewhere. So I don't know, growing up, math was everywhere. You just sort of see like counting your bill at the grocery store, I don't know, counting sheep on the farm, like whatever it is. And so I was like, you know what, math is a good thing. Like I know I'll get a job if I do something with math. And so I did. I studied applied math at Appalachian State University, and I got minors in statistics, biology, and computer science. I was really interested in that applied side, like how can math be applied in the world? And so then I wanted to use what I was learning in school, and so I did a little bit of like research in my undergrad, but I wasn't quite what like the the application I was interested in. Like I said, I really liked healthcare, and so I applied for this REU, like research experience for undergrads, my junior year, or like the summer of my junior year, and it was in biostatistics. And this was like the first time I ever got to use like actual machine learning and, you know, programming, not just for like a homework assignment, but like for real like problems. And it was also the first time I got to work with stakeholders and like end users and people who are actually going to take this and like it needs to provide value. So I got the coding experience, I got, you know, the application, and I also talking to people. And so I knew that to get further in my career, I needed a master's degree. And so I just went for a master's degree in analytics. It's a really cool program at NC State that's 10 months long. And I said, heck yeah, like I can do school for another 10 months. So I did that. And right out of school, I went to Red Hat for my first job as a data scientist, and you know, worked there for almost 2 years. And then I came to Elder Research where I have been here for almost 2 years as well.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that progression. And Melinda, how about you? From wanting to be a vet to being, you know, developing models, talking about AI, what did that progression look like for you?
Yeah, so by college, I pretty much knew I didn't want to be a vet, right? Like that was not the career path for me. I actually studied economics for my first couple of degrees, and so when I was getting my master's degree, the way I paid for my master's degree was I was using SAS, so the software that made by the company that Adam works at now. And I was using SAS to build a database for research out of an administrative database. So in the 90s, that was kind of a new thing, to take the data you were collecting to run your business and use it to analyze your business. So I decided that programming was way more interesting than what I was doing in academic econ. I applied to PhD programs, and I decided to go to work instead. So I went to work at SAS. I taught SAS programming. I ended up teaching statistics. Everyone at SAS has a PhD, or nearly everyone at SAS, it feels like, has a PhD. So I was working for SAS Institute. And I decided that I wanted a PhD too, and I ended up getting a PhD in statistics. So that was kind of my journey. So there was like a 6-year gap in my schooling before I ended up like finishing off. And I always joke, I say, if you talk about getting a second PhD, your first one was not hard enough. People ask me if I'm going to do another one, and I'm like, never. That was plenty difficult.
You know what? That's probably a very solid piece of advice. And, you know, we find value in gaining real life experience and really honing what it is that you're interested in. And that might change throughout your career, throughout your schooling, right? So thanks for sharing that. And Rachini, what about you? You had said that you never expected to be in healthcare, right? So academically speaking, what led you to here, and how did you decide what you wanted to major in?
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a change on that. I actually always knew I wanted to be in healthcare. I just never really thought I'd be in data and analytics. So I finally grew up a little bit. My math got better. I actually loved calculus. Things were great when I was an undergrad. But then I took a stats class. Didn't love that, right? That was definitely not my kind of happy place. But I did love things like Stata and other tools that you could use to do analysis. And I fell in love with Excel over time, right? So for me, I knew I wanted healthcare. I came to Carolina as an undergrad, UNC Chapel Hill and undergrad. I'm a Tar Heel through and through, undergrad grad plus 17 years at UNC Health. So I think I pretty much bleed blue at this point. But you know, the things that I really learned through my undergrad experience is that I got to do kind of like what Paige was saying, internships as well as hands-on work. So I thought I was pre-med. I worked as a certified nursing assistant to try and test that out a little bit while I was in college. Discovered the clinical side wasn't really what excited me the most. I saw the process issues, I saw the opportunities, So I joined a program that was more on the health policy and management side of healthcare, so more of the business aspects of healthcare. And that's actually what my undergrad and graduate degrees are in. Now, by the time I graduated from Carolina, I really thought I was a people person. I'd convinced myself that I'm not a like 95% behind the desk person and that I would die if I had to do that all day long. So I took a consulting job and actually worked at hospitals, worked in process improvement, and really tried to help with guide people through those changes, and actually discovered that nope, I actually am that behind the desk person, and that Excel was my new passion. So coming over to UNC Health as an analyst was fantastic for me. I kind of ran through the ranks as an analyst to get to where I am today. I've done just about everything on the BI side of the world, inclusive of starting data governance at UNC Health, and now in the role that I'm in. But yeah, it's been a meandering path, I guess you can say, between my undergraduate career and where I am today. But to really help make sure that I'm the best leader for my team, I also did a program through, and it's a certificate program. I'm a big advocate for certificate programs, and I did that probably about a year ago. Just because, as roles change, as the work we do change and how you do it changes, you sometimes have to refresh those skills. So I did a Carnegie Mellon University CDATA-O program, Chief Data Officer program, in order to make sure I could serve my team the best possible way.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations. 1 year is still recent, right? That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And what about you, Adam? You have a background in higher education and in more the science side of things. So what made you decide to major in what you did?
Yeah, as far as like my academic career goes, I think a lot of it is like location is sort of what motivated me. So I'm from North Carolina. I went to UNC because UNC is the school that I could afford to go to at the time. I majored in physics as an undergrad. I think, philosophically speaking, there probably is a little bit of a bent in me that says, how does that work? Why does that work? I want to know how that works. And so I think, it's probably natural that I would pursue something like physics or even, analytics to try to get to, understand, something complex. I joke with my friends that I majored in physics because it was hard. And that was about the extent of why I chose it. And then, of course, at the end of 4 years, I didn't really know what I was going to do. But I had a side hustle in Chapel Hill at the time that I really didn't want to go anywhere for. So I joined the Master's in Teaching program at UNC, again, because it was here and I could, claim that I was doing something with my life as opposed to just, I was coaching rowing at the time, which is not really a career. So I got into, teaching to sort of like have a real job. And then I got out and kind of did education for a while. And I was, honestly, like, coaching is one of my biggest passions that I would say still is. And so like everything else I was doing was sort of just ancillary to being able to do that. And but I did end up teaching high school for a number of years and, changing needs of, family and finances, realized that that was not going to be a sustainable choice for much longer. And so, what do you do then is if you live in Chapel Hill and you are a math teacher and you want the next step, you go to NC State to get your master's in analytics, just like Paige did. And, I did that. And then here I am a couple of years later from that decision, which, again, it was just one of those things that it seemed like, like I understand math. This seems like, a marketable skill. So sure, why not?
I love that. What the commonalities that I'm hearing across the board is figuring out and understanding what you're good at and then honing that. And then as you develop, okay, what else can I collect in my toolkit? So with that said, whether we call it meandering, whether we call it pivoting, right? Can you all share a aha moment so far in your career that you haven't already shared with the group? Let's start with Adam again.
I was hoping I was going to have some time to think about this one. No, I haven't really had any, to be honest. I was so fortunate, and we'll probably get into this later, that the master's program at NC State did a lot of career work, career development, career making yourself look good to employers type of stuff. I think I would have been personally very lost without that. So when I was offered a job at SAS, I was relieved and overjoyed, and that was fantastic. And then since getting here, it's been a lot of, you just kind of follow what projects are that come up and need staffing. And so as far as real big moments, there haven't been a lot. I think it's even post employment, there's tons of skill development that happens. And so, every now and then, yes, like we'll be on a project and there'll be something that's really, really hard, and then you get it working, and then that feels really, really good. So I've had plenty of opportunities to keep learning new things, which has been really, really, really great. But as far as sort of that, mountaintop moment, it hasn't happened yet. So I've gotten, transitioned into some leadership on some projects recently, which you think would be exciting, but is actually just for me like terrifying, because here's another thing that I haven't done before that I need to figure out how to do. But there is, but there's a lot of good in that too, right? It keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always a first time for everything. What about you, Paige?
Yeah, I mean, I know like my background and everything, I was just like gung-ho math and everything, but I did have like an impactful pivot moment in my career. So with my first job coming out of my master's program, I was the only data scientist on my team. And fun fact, that is not a good thing if it is your first job as a data scientist. For me, I was super eager to learn, and I needed people to learn from, and it was really hard to find those people, and I was the only one. And I was having to make decisions, which is great. And I think, looking back, I would love that job in like 10 years from now. But starting out, I was struggling. I wanted people to learn from, I wanted people to talk to, I wanted, people to help me, correct me. And so that's when I realized I needed a change, and I needed to be surrounded by people who could provide that for me. And so I, went searching, and I had a pretty good idea of places and people. Due to the graduate program, I built a huge network, and I knew what other people were doing that, were in the same field as me. And so I found my current role, and I love it. And it's truly because of the people I'm surrounded by. We get cool problems, but I have gained so much in the past 2 years just by hearing things, by watching people, learning from people, talking to people. So I think it's okay if your first job isn't ideal. It's okay if it's not, you're not going to get what you want. You're not going to get like, this is my dream job. It's not going to happen, and that's okay. But you're going to learn about what you don't want, and that's so valuable too. We always focus on what we do want, but like knowing what you don't want is getting you closer to that step of what you do. So don't panic, just get a first job. That's really all you need. Is you need some experience, right out of school. And once you build up a year and a half, like then you can start looking. But I think that was my big aha moment. It was like, no, this isn't working. Time for a change. So
That's great. And I think that shift in perspective is important, right? I may not know exactly what I want to do, what job I want to have, but I know what I don't like, and I know where I want to grow. And then also in finding your own community, right? Thank you for that. What about you, Melinda? What is one aha moment that you've had?
Yeah, so it wasn't really a work or career aha moment. My entire schooling, I had been told I was bad at math. And it turns out I have attention deficit disorder. So I'm bad at doing math very quickly for a test. Uh, and so realizing that, you may not have been good at it in school, but that doesn't mean you're not good at it, right? Just because you didn't make stellar grades at something doesn't mean you're not, for example, a talented statistician. And so I bailed out of academia, and I think that was the right choice for me. I probably would not have enjoyed academic statistics, but I did it for the wrong reason. I sincerely thought I wasn't good at doing math proofs, and I wasn't capable of doing them. And it just turned out there was something about my brain I didn't know. And if I'd known it sooner, I might have made different choices.
We make the best decision that we can with the information that we have, right? Appreciate you sharing that. Rachini, how about you? An aha moment.
Yeah. So before I jump into mine, I just want to thank Melinda for sharing that. I think that is such a critical, important thing for us all to understand, that everybody comes to the table with different capabilities, and sometimes with more challenges than others. But learning who you are and what you're capable of, and giving yourself the grace to explore that, I think is such an important thing. And I love Melinda's story because she really took the time to explore that. So thanks for sharing that. So for me, I think I kind of said it, but I've had lots of aha moments. I will say that there were two of the most impactful in my career was really more around the insecurities that I had as a worker, right? And asking for more. And I do mentor quite a few women, especially in the data and analytics space. And I always hear a recurring theme of folks who undervalue what they bring to the table and not asking for more, and not asking for the right challenges or the right opportunities that align with their career paths, right? And so that's something that I try to remind them about, because I've had to learn that the hard way myself, right? Taking a $10,000 to $20,000 pay cut and taking a job because somebody said all my skills didn't align, and not necessarily looking for or asking for the next opportunity can really hold you back. Like, some of the biggest steps for me in my career have been because I found the courage to ask, to raise my hand, because a lot of folks aren't going to invite you to that table. You've got to be able to figure out your own voice, and understand what you can offer when presented with an opportunity that you see, and be able to ask for that next step so that you can position yourself to be the best candidate for it. The second thing was that I had an amazing boss who I could go to for mentor conversations and one of the things he always said to me was, you are in your job the majority of your day and the majority of your life, right? You might as well love it. So I've used that as a bar for staying in a role, moving to the next role, whatever it is. What excites me? What really aligns with my purpose, with my personal passions and motives that I want to see accomplished? And that really helps me to have a true north when I look for that next step.
Thank you for sharing that, and also for appreciating and acknowledging the story that Melinda shared, right? We all need to find out, one, what we don't like, what we want to pursue, and who we are as we develop, whether as professionals or people. So with that said, as some of you had touched on this already, outside of the technical skills and learning models, learning AI, learning programming, what are some important soft skills or experiences that you think our audience should consider developing? And for this one, Rashini, will continue with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of the folks that we bring into our data science program, the thing that they often say is that the math is the easy part. The building of the model is the easy part, right? It's the everything else that's the package around it that actually allows you to create a solution that is consumed and useful in a way that people feel like they're part of that solution and that it's viable for them. That's the hard part, right? So we really do try and remind folks that and I like to, there's a different book out there that talks about it as sharp skills and smart skills. So I really like to think of these as the smart skills that you bring to the table, the ability to work with people, the ability to manage up to so work in teams, the problem framing skills that you might have gotten are things to remember over time as well as critical thinking, right? Like, and often the how you fit the solution back into workflows and all of those other system thinking type aspects. All of those smart skills are critically important to be successful as a worker in this space.
Love that. Sharp skills versus smart skills. Adam, what advice and recommendations would you have as smart skills to develop?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you got to learn to talk to people, right? Like that's hugely important, as far as, I think a lot of, especially analytically minded folk, like to think about things in terms of like a problem in a textbook where everything you need is in the paragraph and the problem, and then you can just go and do it. And there's some rubric there that you can judge it by. But, like we're saying here, like what am I producing? Is it going to work? How is it going to work? Is it relevant? Do they want that? Like all this stuff is we have a ticketing system with 100 tickets in it right now for a project that we're working on, right? And like guess what? Like not all the information about what you need to develop for that ticket is in the ticket itself. Like that's a conversation that has to happen, at least weekly with the client and in the iterations of that. So, I think like that's probably like the big one for me is just learning that like most of the stuff is not it's not a it's not a task so much as it is a conversation, right? And the only way that you're going to produce something that like somebody actually wants is to talk to that person about what they want. And it's especially like all the other stuff too that goes into that about you probably have the skill set to do a piece of it, but you don't have the skill set to do the entire part of it, especially when it comes to integrating into sort of like a more complicated system that maybe, runs in production or whatever. Like you need help. So I think that's a hugely important soft skill. And then I might put a plug into is just the idea of, general problem solving or like project management, right? Whenever you have to do something very complicated that keeps you busy, right? Like, being able to think through like how am I going to do that? How will I accomplish this? I think that's another good, smart skill to have is to be able to sort of, you know, organize, like everybody gets up every day and puts their clothes on and gets out the door and goes to work. Like it's a really complicated thing to do, but you have a system to do it, right? And you're very good at it. And eventually, like, so thinking about like, you don't even need like a system so much as you need to be able to think about like, well, how do I do that? How do I break down hard problems into smaller chunks and then accomplish those tasks? I think that's a good thing to like start to develop and think about as you move into your career.
That's fantastic. Thank you. So what I'm hearing is asking questions, talking to people, and maybe even anticipating what they're looking for, right? Rather than this is going from black and white, point A to point B. Why are you doing this? Asking those probing questions may actually get you to the solution. Appreciate that. Paige, what about you? What soft skills, what smart skills would you recommend our audience develops?
Yeah, just to hit it home one more time, like being able to talk is so important. And, a lot of people that we work with and talk to, they don't care about the analytics. Like they don't care what methodology you use. They care about the value you're going to provide, and they care that they can explain it. They want to be able to tell their boss's boss, hey, this is what we need to use. And so it's really, okay, I have this problem. You go do your cool, fancy AI, ML buzzword technique, but then you got to bring it back to this like value add to the business. You got to speak their lingo. And that is what's really one of the most important things, like even over like technical skills. Like if you can't explain it, it's worthless. So all that aside, I also think it's really valuable, to Adam's point, to be a quick learner. One of the biggest things I learned in my master's program was how to pick up something fast. Data science is such a broad like field that company to company, job to job, you're going to be doing something different. And so you have to be able to learn it fast. And you don't have time to like go through a whole course, like you need to pick it up really quick. So I think, just practicing being able to learn fast. I don't really have any advice on how to do that aside from like having the self-discipline to like go and look things up and understand it. But I think those are the biggest things. Like definitely be able to have that value add, speak the business, and yeah, learn really fast.
Communication is all boils down to communication and people skills. And so to round us out, Melinda, any other thoughts on recommendations?
Yeah, so everyone's kind of talked about the importance of communication. And one thing that I didn't learn until later than I would have liked was how to listen well and how to demonstrate to people that you're hearing them. There's actually this excellent book. It's billed as a negotiation book, but it's a business communication book. It's called Never Split the Difference. It's by a guy named Chris Voss. He was a hostage negotiator for the FBI. And then he started this consulting company for business negotiation. But most of that book is about a technique called active listening, and how to listen in a way that builds rapport. And in a lot of projects, you're kind of you're trying to, a lot of your projects are a negotiation. You will deal with hard-headed clients. You will deal with hard-headed coworkers. You might be the hard-headed coworker someone else is dealing with. That's certainly also a possibility. And it's a way to turn conversations, even in what might feel like an adversarial conversation, into a cooperative exercise where you're learning about each other. Like I said, listening even more than speaking is really useful.
Wing,
Yeah,
if I could, oh, go
oh,
ahead,
you
Paige.
first. No, you first.
Yeah, so I love that. But like I look back at my early career and I used to get like mini panic attacks having to speak in like at sometimes even at a smaller table felt more intimidating than a big room of people, right? And so I just want to stress that the thing that Melinda just pointed out is these are skills you can gain. These are skills you can hone. And you don't have to start your career with it. It's stuff that, as you acknowledge, you've got gaps, right? Find the right places to hone those skills, to learn fast, like Paige is saying. And it's okay if you acknowledge that it's not your strength today, right? I'm a big fan of strength finders. Know your strengths and play to those strengths. But then if there's areas that you need to be able to balance, you sometimes do have to work on how do you balance those skills out. Communication is one that you can't get away from in any job, right? Like it's one of those things where if you need to go to Toastmasters to try and practice, if you need to, go to classes to learn about what communication's like, the more you practice and the more you do it, the easier it gets, right? Like I don't get panic attacks anymore talking to folks and, speaking up in meetings, but it did take me probably 5 or 6 years in the professional world before I actually started to feel comfortable with some of that.
Thank you for sharing that, Rachini. I think to that end, the smart skills that you all are talking about doesn't really require a degree, doesn't really require a certificate, right? These are things that you will learn as part of your experience, as part of your role changes, as part of figuring out it is that what you don't want to do, how you mirror from people that you admire at work or someone that you look up to, whether it's a official mentor, if there's a mentoring program, or someone that you partner with, a business partner who's had experience or you want to emulate. So thank you everyone for sharing that. So we are at the point of our hour together where we are going to pivot to some questions that our audience has submitted. Here are your easy retro board instructions. We're seeing there are already a lot of questions that have been submitted.
Yeah, and just to remind everyone, I'm sure you guys all know how to use that QR code there, but do take a moment to add your comments, questions, feedback in the relevant column. We obviously have them marked off for each panelist and our wonderful moderator, as well as a general question column. Just type your idea and hit the blue box with the thin white check mark when you're finished to save within the same field. And you can also upvote someone else's idea and comment on an idea as well. But thanks to all of you who have gone ahead and added some questions here. You guys have done a great job populating that board. Looking forward to walking through some of those together.
Yeah, and while folks are filling that out, the name of the book, I saw that was one of the questions. It's called Never Split the Difference. And the author is Chris Voss, Voss.
Thank you, Melinda. Let's start off with a general question for the panel. How do I make my resume stand out with so many candidates vying for the same job? What would a recruiter look for in a new undergraduate computer scientist? This one has multiple upvotes. So panelists who would like to jump in, how do you make your resume stand out? I think it ties in with a lot of what we've already just covered.
Yeah, my favorite candidates when I was hiring had projects to talk about, even if they were non-work projects. I would also say there are a ton of meetup groups here in the Triangle. There are probably tech meetups wherever you are. It really helps to meet people, really helps to do a presentation at one of those, just a way for people to see you. That is a good way to stand out, is to make yourself seen. Yeah, those soft networking skills, again, listening more than you talk, learning from the people around you.
Any other thoughts on what makes a resume stand out?
So I'm going to double click on Melinda's comments around being specific about projects. I think there are other ways that you can help to also bring your resume higher up in the queue and establish yourself with a hiring manager. I'm not saying everybody should do this, because there's no way a hiring manager can 100% talk to everybody pre-application, but I like it when somebody takes the extra step to try and connect with me and have a dialogue to talk about the position. It really shows that somebody is really interested in the work we're doing. They're not just another applicant for a job that might be, casually looking, which can be really hard when you're a hiring manager, because there are a lot of people that sometimes put their resumes out there to casually look, and it's hard to tease that out from the folks that are really serious about wanting a role. So in addition to what Melinda was saying, I think trying to find ways to go that extra step. If you know somebody at an organization that has a position open, maybe talking to that person, asking them whether they have a referral program, asking if they don't mind sending your resume through. I do it for people all the time within my organization, and I think it's just thinking about the different ways that you can make your resume stand out from the crowd.
Appreciate that. And Rashni, as you're talking about that, I'm seeing there is a question on your board that relates. It is talking about, it is recommended to network before applying. Heard that only cold applying is not a good strategy to get jobs in the US. How do you and your recruiters handle large number of applicants? What are your tips on networking to get hired, and any tips on how to show you can provide value to an employer? So you just mentioned maybe reaching out if you have a connect or a contact, maybe it's even through LinkedIn. Any other recommendations or tips do you have for our audience?
Yeah, I do think that, so those ones that I mentioned all definitely apply. But I also think that having your short spiel ready, right? Like I don't want to undervalue how much the first impression matters, right? Like you can't come to the table and ask somebody who's a hiring manager who has hundreds of applicants to spend 30 minutes with you. It's almost like you've got to be able to have a dialogue, understand what you can offer versus what they can offer, and be able to put that concisely in your messaging to them, right? So I'm not just talking about generic cover letters. Like cover letters to me feel like a thing of the past, right? People don't have time to read it. I don't have time as a hiring manager to go through all of pages and pages of things. I need the Cliff Notes version, and I don't want to have to run it through ChatGPT to get the synopsis. You need to do that for me, right? So if you really think about the hiring manager as somebody who needs you to help them to find that you're the best candidate for it, to show that enthusiasm and that ability to be the best candidate, that really helps you to stand out quite a bit more. Having like a LinkedIn presence is really great too. I will say that most of the managers on my team do check out people's LinkedIn profiles, right? And making sure that it is reflective of the outcomes you're doing, the work that you're doing. Those are all important things to be thinking about. What is your presence in that space that helps you to stand out as a differentiated candidate from everyone else?
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Go ahead, Paige.
I,
Oh, sorry. Was that Melinda?
Yeah, that was Melinda. No problem. I do want to acknowledge it is a tough time to be looking. I graduated into a really tough job market, and I have a lot of empathy for people who are looking now. Absolutely change up your approach. Look, try different things if what you're doing isn't working. But also know that it is just a tough job market, and it's important to just kind of hang in there and keep going.
Yeah, would be remiss to not say it's not easy and not always instant gratification, right? But it certainly is worth putting in that effort. And to the point about having LinkedIn presence, having your summary, having references, having something tangible or numbers behind any projects, school related, work related that you've done would be helpful to stand out. Another general question for the whole panel, suppose that I do get an internship. How can I make sure that I'm actually a valuable contribution to my team and my company? So when you're starting out, how do you add value? Another one that has multiple upvotes. I think we talked about making sure that you are networking, getting to know your team members, talking about communication, being proactive. Paige, I see a hands up. Would you like to take the
Yeah,
mic?
I can be the first to take a stab at it. So this is definitely probably not going to sound like what you expect, but I think like having an internship, you should sort of be selfish about it. I think it's great that you want to add value, but like they have people they hire full time to do that. Not to say you wouldn't, but like use it as an opportunity. Like, what do you want to get out of it? Like for me, I wanted to learn from people. I want to know how people are coding. I want to know, what methods they're using. I want to be sure my assumptions are right. Like I think it's a time where you like can be selfish and say, okay, like here are all the skills I'm going to like take in so that I can then when I'm on the job market, use that because likely, they might be wanting to hire full time from this internship. And so if you can sort of mirror, what their employees are doing, like that's great. Obviously it's working for them. So but yeah, I would use that as an opportunity to be selfish and like, what do you want to get out of that internship?
Yeah, I'll add to what Paige said. I think being selfish, not just in your internship, but in your job is important too, right? Like, and the interview process, right? Like, I like to remind people when you finally land that interview, you are interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And I know it's a tough job market right now, but you got to figure out where your line gets drawn for what you're willing to do versus what you're not willing to take. Things like culture are important, things like support for you as especially if you're entering into the workforce at the beginning, what Paige said earlier around being a team of one. If you don't have anybody to learn from, grow with, is that going to be a limiter, right? So really assessing what that looks like for you. And if you have the opportunity to intern with them before then to understand what that experience could look like, that's all the better. Right. But so let me equate it to UNC Health. So we've got 2 internship positions for this summer posted right now that are specific to data science. But like Melinda mentioned, it's a tough hiring market. Companies don't have all the money that we've typically had to be able to hire like we used to. So while I might have interns and we're really invested in growing folks' resumes and helping them with their careers and helping healthcare, getting them in some experience with healthcare. That's a lot of what we do with our internships. While we'd love to hire every one of our interns at the end of that summer, we don't always have the position available to do so, right? So you have to really balance your internship partially to be a resume builder, to be able to come out of it with the experiences that you can speak to, project-based experiences, as well as what value can I add by doing just a great job with what they're asking, right? But it's okay to ask for more. My internship, which was not data science related when I was in college, was to actually build a business plan for like a doula program, which is like a healthcare thing, right? But that was exactly what I needed to be able to build my resume and have something to talk about during my interviews.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that perspective. It is a two-way street. Whether you're interviewing for an internship or full-time position, ultimately, to the earlier comment about this is where you will be spending most of your time. These are the people that you'll be working with day in and day out. It is important to know what it is what you don't want, but also what you would like to have. And so asking questions about culture, what does success look like in a particular role? What does growth look like? Are also interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Rajni. Let's go to Before I go to another question, do any other panelists have additions to what we just talked about? Okay. Let's go to another general question. Go ahead, Adam.
I'll jump in real quick. I think I'll keep it short, but like I think with you're not going to add value as an intern. Like you're just not. That's okay. Like it's my father-in-law was a project manager for IBM for decades, and he basically said they gave new people 6 months to figure out what they were doing. So just keep in mind that like you're going to be a train wreck. It's fine. It's fine. That's what people expect out of interns. That's why they're there. People want to help you. So just keep that in mind that like you're learning how to do things. And I would say along with that process is, don't underestimate the value of asking the obvious question, right? So like if are you sitting in a room and people are talking about things and just ask the question that you think maybe everybody already has the answer to, and it's a great way to make sure that you're on the same page as everybody else. And to be honest, like those questions don't get asked often enough. And so like by being there, like being curious about what the heck is going on, like you're probably going to make that team function a lot better because they're going to have to explicitly state some assumptions that they're probably not saying. So, long story short, don't worry about being a superstar and like just ask questions.
Work hard and be nice to people and ask a lot of questions. Thank you. We have another question, but this one is a little bit more specific to data science. So how do you know whether you are more suited for a career in data analysis versus data science versus data engineering? Multiple folks in our audience upvoted this one. Does anyone have a perspective on how do you know what's right for you?
Yes, I love to talk about this. So I'll start and I will try to be brief. The key word is engineer versus science. So engineers tend to work fast, and they tend to take existing solutions and kind of work them together to create something. Data engineering, I think, is undervalued. It's not as sexy as people don't realize how absolutely critical data engineering is, and it is becoming a true discipline in and of itself. So if you like sitting at the keyboard, writing code, problem solving, data engineering might be a lot more interesting to you than data science. I see someone who asks about being a data scientist versus, or do I need a PhD in data science to be a data scientist? And I would say, if you are the sort of person who's really excited about the idea of a PhD, the science part is probably more interesting to you. If you like to code and you like to work with data engineer is probably more interesting to you. They are equally valuable career paths.
Thank you so much, Melinda.
All right, folks, I think we have time for about one more question.
Perfect. Let's find another one that stands out. Another technical question. What aspects of SAS are becoming replaceable and which ones are not? This one is directed to Adam. But our panelists are also welcome to answer.
Yeah, and actually that would be great for the other panelists to answer a little bit because they have less skin in the game. I think like we're too embedded. We got too many Fortune 500 companies that use us. We're never going away. Everything is important about SaaS. But to be the serious answer to the question, I think is it's not so much SaaS code. What's a big movement in SaaS is doing is towards their VIA platform, and a lot of that is low code solutions. So things like visual analytics and visual blah 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 blah. Where like what we're doing is we're taking let a data engineer, somebody put the table into the system for you, but then you go in with something something very similar to Tableau. Basically, like SaaS has a lot of products like that that maybe aren't as like people don't know about as much because they think of SaaS as a coding language. But like I think that's the sort of what happens under the hood, I think, is probably like replaceable across the board with everything, and it's that piece on top of it, which is like, well, how can you put analytics in the hands of someone who can't code, right? Especially with all the new AI stuff, and I think that's the piece where I see like SAS adding a lot of value is sort of more of these interactive UI based things to like really quickly do a lot of like analysis and get some answers out of that. So as far as the SAS language goes, yeah, I mean, like you can debate that, and I think the rest of our panels probably have their opinions about it. But SAS is always going to be like working towards like what do people need in the the marketplace and as business needs and stuff like that. So yeah, they're pivoting. I think.
Thanks, Adam. And I certainly took it as the SAS programming language as I was glancing through all of those questions. I think we are coming up at the hour. Heard a lot of great insight about your journeys, your careers, your education, how you came to where you are today from the panel, and also a lot of information about tips, right? The smart skills that you think our audience can take away: people skills, being authentic, asking questions, staying intellectually curious along the way, and knowing that things can pivot and meander along the way. Any other final nugget that you'd like to share with our group today?
Yeah, I can share one last nugget of value. I think one thing I learned in my graduate program was, like your network is sort of like your biggest like weapon, I guess. So building a network, and that means like people in your same career path, people maybe you companies you want to work at. So if you think UNC healthcare is great, you should reach out to Rachini and connect on LinkedIn. Like start building that network of people and surrounding yourself with people that you want to be like and want to be in that field, because that's who's going to get you your next job. So I think that's one of the most important things I learned.
Yeah, I love that. I also want to add, there's a couple of questions I think throughout a lot of ours that, people might have started with some kind of background in one space, and then how do they get into it? We kind of touched on that. I never think that starting a job or taking a job or having an experience in one area is ever a waste, because I feel like we always build upon what we know and what we do, right? So if specifically for healthcare, if you have a clinical background, if you've been in a supply chain area, if you've been in another space, fantastic, right? Like I think those are there's data and analytics and AI for every single industry, right? That's the cool thing about being in this space. It is cross-cutting. Everybody needs it. It's a common thing. So if you've got a background that didn't really necessarily set you up to naturally become a data scientist, that's okay, right? It's just one more of the things that you can bring to the table and talk about when as a resume builder of I've got a depth of experience in X, Y, and Z in this space, and that's what makes me a better candidate for something.
Yeah. And I would say stay curious. Things change so fast. The job I thought I was going to have even 5 years ago is not the job I have now. So
Fantastic. Panel, thank you all so much for taking the time to share with our audience today.
I second that. We are just so excited about all the information you guys have shared today. This has been really valuable. I think a lot of good information shared no matter where you are in your career, if it's early or mid or sort of a little bit later in life. I think that you guys have really passed along some amazing advice. So thank you. We will be sharing out the recording from this event in just a few days. We invite you guys, and please just kindly request that you complete our evaluation so we can provide compelling programs that feature content that you want to learn about. Okay, so take a minute to complete the survey at the end of this event. And we also invite you to join our talent pool. We're still sort of building that, and we'll be sharing a little bit more about that in the coming months. So do sign up for our listserv if you have not done that already. And in terms of our next and upcoming events, we do have a really exciting event with featuring a friend from SAS who is going to be speaking about supporting AI risk management in the analytics life cycle. That will be our next Data Bites event that takes place on Tuesday, April 30th at 3:30. SAS is one of many members, along with Elder Research, who have joined the National Institute of Standards and Technologies AI Risk Management Framework. Have joined their group, and we are going to be hearing from Sophia Rowland about some SAS guidelines and some recommendations that they're making as best practices. So interesting stuff. If that interests you, please do join us. And we've got a QR code there for you to go ahead and get signed up. And other than that, we are delighted that you were here, that you've spent an hour learning from these smart people, and we look forward to hosting all of you in the near future. Thanks so much, panelists and Wing, moderator extraordinaire. You guys were amazing. Very glad to have you guys this evening. Come back anytime. Thank you, everyone.